Right, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Benedicta van Minnen. I'm the chair of the committee. Just to run through the process, we will introduce ourselves and then you have 10 minutes to do your presentation. We'll keep an eye on the time. And then we followed up with 7 questions from the panel. It's about a 1-minute response each. And that's the process. So yes, I've introduced myself and to my left.
Morning, Wasim Matthews, Procedural Officer.
Good morning, sir. My name is Wendy Kaiser-Philander, and I'm a member of this committee. Welcome.
Morning, Mr. Proctor. I'm Member Boyson, also a member of this committee.
Good morning, Benson Lenso, member of this committee. Thank you.
Good morning, Donita Stevens, member of this committee.
Good morning, Peter Johnson, member of this committee.
Great. So if you're ready, and I see you've got water, and it is now 9:08, so that is 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'm Brendan Proctor. The short presentation is just to introduce myself and address the questions that were sent to me by Wasim. I just made some points on each of the slides. The first 2 slides deal with the first 2 questions together, and the third slide deals with my understanding of compliance and social ills and benefits of job creation, etc., in the liquor licensing and law enforcement. So to the first one, just something short about myself. For my personal life, I'm a husband and a father to 2 grown-up daughters who I still think of as little girls. I love watching sport. I do not play any sport. I pretend to jog now. But as activities, I am the world's worst braaier, but I do think I'm a good cook and I enjoy doing that. And anything outdoors, I'm up for it as long as it doesn't involve camping. As an introvert myself, I do need time and space to process reality and to refine myself. So I'm always struggling to find, with some success or not sometimes, a balance between family life and commitments, my own personal well-being and work, which I still do. I'm currently an IT project manager for AVI. My professional life or my adult life can basically be broken down into 2 periods. For nearly 18 years, I was either studying or ministering as a Catholic priest, which gave me the opportunity to study and travel a bit. I spent 3 years in Italy. I also had the opportunity to work in a very large parish in Johannesburg, to be involved in Catholic schools, as well as marriage ministries and assisting especially dying and terminal people. The reason I left that is I decided to get married, and you cannot be married and be a Catholic priest yet. So the second part of my life was as an IT developer and a project manager, and that's what I still do and enjoy today. My current professional interests in my IT environment are the improvement and alignment of what business or users or people would like to get out of their IT experience, and the actual technology on the other side to try and marry these things and to make it happen, as well as process improvement and governance. Currently, I am in a big corporate, and so there is a lot of emphasis on improving the governance of IT tasks and business, and using IT to do that. And I have a special interest and qualifications in risk management. When I was approached by Stephen Harrison regarding this position, he did mention that there was a need that for some IT experience and governance experience on the board, and I would be happy to contribute any experience I have in that IT, governance, administration, and a general IT environment that I've gained over the last nearly 30 years. I have also had experience, you can go to the next slide, Wasim. As a board member, I've served on 2 different boards, one as an ex officio member of St. Benedict's College, which is a large boys' school in Johannesburg, quite a high profile and prestigious school. In that position, I really learned the value of a board that can give support and strategic guidance to the people actually doing the work of the school. And I think especially I saw the value the board has in having a strategic vision, an overall vision, and helping people who have perhaps conflicts of interests of how to spend the budget, for example. Do you put in an Olympic swimming pool, or do you build more classrooms? And I think the board played a good role in things like that. The second board I served on was for the TLC Children's Home. I worked there. I took a year out from IT and I worked there. It was a home, a place of safety for especially newborn babies. And I think here I learned the value of the legal, financial, the oversight requirements that had been lost by the current board, which put the organization, this NPO, at terrible risk. And while it was firefighting every day, there was no overall view, no long-term plan, no risk management, and eventually even the NPO status and the registration with the Department of Social Services was at risk. So my contribution to the Western Cape Liquor Authority, I think my professional experience as well as my experience on 2 boards shows me the value of a functioning board, the support, the strategic oversight a functioning board can give, as well as the governance role. And if I was appointed to the position, I would be happy to serve and contribute to that. Perhaps for the last 3 minutes, if we could I'll just speak to some of the points on the slide. I do understand the social dangers of alcohol. I also appreciate and enjoy myself the benefits and the enjoyment of alcohol and the importance that it has in some of our cultures, our milestone events, our celebrations, the social networking that happens. And in a free society, so when I looked at this question first, I thought, why should we even bother? Why should we even have to have laws governing alcohol in a free society? And I think it's because basically alcohol is not just any other consumer product. There are serious dangers with it. It is addictive. It does impair judgment. It does cause violence and accidents. It does consume money that may be better used elsewhere. There is a productivity loss through alcohol, and the profit motive, those wanting to sell the alcohol, don't always match with the good of the community. Enforcement of this legislation, it's pointless to have it if you can't enforce it. So the terms of the licensing, for example, at this level should be clear enough to be able to be enforced and then have to be enforced. I was also thinking about the role of the community in understanding what something like a liquor license involves, and also a contribution, maybe an education of how people should be able to contribute not just to determining whether an establishment should get a liquor license, but also what should be governed within a liquor license. In terms of balancing job creations and social ills, I know that a liquor license, and especially in a place like the Western Cape with our wine farms, our holidays, the tourists, it is important to not just job creation, but the financial well-being of many people. However, the unbalanced playing field created by advertising and marketing, the two for the price of one, etc., does create problems. And I have seen that, and I think it should, the more we can manage that, the better. So I also understand something of the frameworks within which different legislation and different responsibilities happen between national, provincial, and local authorities. And I have some understanding that I could get from the website of the Western Cape Liquor Authority. That's minutes.
Great. Thank you very much. And over to the panel. Kaiser Philander.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Thank you very much for the presentation this morning, Mr. Proctor. And my question to you, what are the negative social impacts of the liquor trade and how do you think it should be solved? Thank you.
I mentioned some of the negative impacts. Domestic violence, we know, is often connected statistically with alcohol, as are road accidents, as are injuries, as the cost of people who cannot, or productivity in the environments, the misuse of money, or money could be better used. So there are serious social ills. I think there is there's no one silver bullet to this, a number of different components, whether it is putting excise duties on it, restricting ages. I think those are all ways of doing it. Ultimately, licensing times, who you could serve it to, how much you could serve, the good name of an institution, public disturbance, etc. But ultimately, I think it comes down to assisting people to make better choices, and whether that's through education or a legal framework that does try to limit excess. I think that is one way to address the social ills.
Question number 2. Describe the challenges of handling liquor licenses in different communities.
Imagine there are many. One is that where a liquor license is granted, the community may not want it. And while other people in the community may certainly want it. So I think also managing the terms of a liquor license, whether it's hours, whether it's volumes, whether it's age appropriate service, must be an issue. And then communities, how many available retail and on consumption, off consumption places, establishments there are in a community, certainly must have an impact on how, not just the time wise, but how available it is and what the community, how that might affect the community's use of these places.
Thank you very much. Here's your question 3. How do you foresee different departments, cooperating with one another to ensure a legal, vibrant industry?
Departments nationally, hierarchically, or departments within the Western Cape provincial environment?
Certainly within the context of how you understand the body.
So I think something like the Western Cape Liquor Authority is one part of a bigger framework of legislation and cooperation. I think the value of appropriate licensing and enforcement of those licenses within the Liquor Authority needs support from SAPS, obviously, to assist with enforcement. I think education, welfare, the feedback from social services, the feedback from various communities and community level organizations who must feed back into a municipal department would also have an important contribution in understanding the impacts of various establishments or licenses that are granted.
Question 4. How do you emphasize the WCLA playing a role in expanding and growing an inclusive liquor industry, particularly assisting the economically disadvantaged?
I think a vibrant liquor industry is one that not only employs people and offers a service to communities, but it's done appropriately, it's done safely, it's done responsibly. So I think a liquor authority, with especially liquor licensing and terms of engagement, would be able to play one part in establishing an environment where people are able to not only benefit or enjoy consuming liquor, and that would provide employment, tax, profit to the environments, but it has to be legislated in some way within a framework that is responsible, especially and community appropriate.
Thank you.
The fifth question is if you can give an example of an ethical quandary that you faced and how you dealt with it. Any ethical quandary, personal or professional.
I can think of it's both personal and professional. In a working environment I was in, a colleague was doing work purportedly on behalf of the company, but was actually managing this privately. So was getting the remuneration privately and using the company resources to do it. This person was a friend of mine. So the ethical quandary was, do I approach the person privately and address it there, or do I go through the proper channels and address it within the company structure? I chose to do it within the company structure and not as a personal friend issue.
Thank you very much, Chair. Mr. Proctor, question number 6. What are the current problems around stakeholder and community engagement? And what, in your view, should the solutions be to address those issues?
Sorry, stakeholder and community engagement in which context?
Yes, let me repeat the question for you. So what are the current problems? I think you have made mention in your presentation of some of those. So what are the problems around stakeholder specific and community engagement? So between the stakeholders involved in this process and community engagements, and what are the solutions in your view that will be able to solve those issues?
I understand the question. I would see the stakeholders as those who perhaps are applying for the liquor license or will run the liquor license or manage the liquor license, the retail outlet or the sporting event or the micro manufacturer. They obviously want to make a profit. In the same time, they're delivering a service. But I think the problem is that the profit motive doesn't always align with the good of a community. And I think to try and to try and sell more isn't always good for the people who consume more. So I think a legal environment where people know that they are licensed to operate in a certain way and that there are consequences of not operating responsibly in the terms of the license is one component in a much broader framework that requires overarching legislation, education, community support, community engagement, alternatives for people. That's
Thank you, Mr. Proctor. Your question is, in your view, how can modernizing technology systems help with law enforcement of the liquor trade, or of liquor trade rather?
the actual law enforcement of it. I think there are certainly technological or technology that can assist, whether it is CCTV cameras, the monitoring of those, very efficient, cheap, easy to use breathalyzers, as well as so I actually can't think of any other enforcement assistance that this could give. I can think of how technology could assist in the management of different institutions or organizations, but the actual enforcement, I can think of CCTV and breathalyzers.
Right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming through. I hope you don't have too much traffic on the way back. In terms of the process forward, we finish our interviews today. We'll then make recommendations to the department, and it's then in their hands from there. So just so that you know where we are with that. Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye-bye. Just I just want to say, now that we've got member Kasim here, should we maybe just readjust the questions or carry on like we did this one? Carry on like we did, but then member Kasim asked the last question. Okay, no, that's fine. Great. Okay, I think let's then get in the next. Is this Mr. Sikhalad?
Yes.
Chair? Yes. So how do you define member Kasim's role? Will that be only that of asking questions and without scoring, or what?
In terms of member Kasim, who I know was online for a
Can you
lot of
clarify?
yesterday, have you done your scoring? Okay. How would you suggest we process? Because I mean, it's fine to be here and ask questions. I just don't want us having an anomaly when it comes to scoring. Okay.
Setting on the online.
Yeah. Can I then just suggest the two of you get together just now when you do the template, just to make sure that everything is in order?
Chair, what we can do is, I wouldn't want the member to be entering the scores now while you're busy doing the interview. Maybe when the interviews are done, I think that we will have quite a bit of time left, and then we could just allocate member Kasim a few minutes to do an exam.
Yeah.
And then the committee can take a break, and then we can go through it. I can punch in, and I can actually just do everybody else's, and
Okay,
then
that's great.
just include member Kasim's from yesterday as well.
Great. Member Boyson?
Before you go, yeah, yeah, you'll be doing the technical part. I was just going to say, Chairperson, it boils down to the same thing, that member Kasim can score for today, and then the exercise of yesterday, then that is what you to deliberate on. But for now, she can score because she is present.
Yes, and also there's a scoring sheet behind each person's CV in. If you want, I can get you a hard copy pack. Okay. Okay.
So, sorry, Chair, what does this explain?
Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us. Just to get some housekeeping done before the interview, I am Benedicta van Minnen. I am the chair of the standing committee. And what we're going to do is we're going to introduce everybody so you know who we all are. Then you have 10 minutes for your presentation, which I see is loaded. After that, there are 7 questions from the board. So that is the process. So I see you've got some water. I've introduced myself. Let me just introduce our procedural officer.
Good morning, Watsi Matthews, procedural officer.
Good morning, Mr. Sigalar. My name is Wendy Kaiser-Philander, and I'm a member of this committee. Welcome. Thank you.
Good morning, sir. I'm Memory Boyson, a member of this committee.
Good morning. My name is Benson Lensu, the member of the committee. Thank you.
Morning, Mr. Sigalar. My name is Aisha Kasim. I'm also a member of this committee.
Good morning, Mr. Sigalar. Donita Stevens, member of the committee.
Good morning. I'm Peter Johnson, member of this committee.
Great. So 10 minutes. It is now 9:35 for your presentation, please.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. My name is Leslie Sigalar. And thank you. Good morning, Chairperson and honorable members of the Standing Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to present my candidacy for the appointment to the governing body of the Western Cape Liquor Authority. I regard this as a critical governance responsibility in balancing economic development, regulatory compliance, and social harm prevention in our province. I received the following interview request that I need to prepare a 10-minute presentation addressing the following areas: give reasons for your suitability for the position, what you value add to get and contribute, what you would bring to this, provide insight into yourself and what qualifies you for the position, and present your understanding of compliance in the liquor trade, the balance of job creation, the role of law enforcement, and the social ill in the liquor licensing sphere. My response to that is my reasons for my suitability is my professional background is rooted in the following. I have 30 years experience in South African Police Service, where I served as a station commissioner and detective commander at various stations in the Western Cape, specifically in the areas affected by alcohol-related crimes. And that is mostly your Cape Flats station. I was also privileged to be a station commissioner in terms of managing the station, but also a detective commander dealing with the crimes, investigating the crimes as a, but that's the result of, or that where alcohol was a contributor. Secondly, I've also got 13 years experience as a lecturer at the Cape Peninsula University of Technology in the Department of Public Administration and Governance. And I think it's critical in terms of our regulatory environment to understand the responsibilities in terms of public administration and governance. So therefore, I'm quite familiar with regulatory compliance and the environment, specifically the environments that we need to focus on, the internal environment within the organization, but also we need to bear in mind that there's an external environment that we need sometimes to consider when we apply these type of rules. Furthermore, due to my 30 years experience in police, I'm quite familiar with community safety and crime prevention, and specifically with the role of alcohol, the contributing factor in terms of those type of actions. My speciality was also policy implementation and oversight. I was responsible at CPUT for policy analysis and policy formulation and implementation of policy within the bigger sphere. So I think I'm quite suitable in terms of that. My academic and professional work focus on for my doctoral thesis are designed an evidence-based social crime prevention model for community participation in the prevention of violent crime. I've argued that we need evidence. If we want to deal with violent crime, we first need to generate evidence. Couple that with social crime prevention, get communities involved, and then most probably we can have a model for community participation in the prevention of violent crime. Already indicated, I'm familiar with policy implementation, that I think this will allow me to approach legal regulation, not emotionally or politically, but analytically. I would be able to deal with data. I think I'm also able to deal with compliance patterns, risk indicators, and measurable social impact of the environment. Next slide, please. If I'm appointed, my contribution would focus on balancing economic growth, and that's in terms of value adding contribution and social responsibility. However, we indicated that the liquor industry contributes to employment, support for small businesses, and drivers of rural township. We also need to be aware of the harm that's caused by the specific industry. The contribution in terms of violent crime, the drivers of alcohol-related harm, and also the pressure that it puts on policing and our healthcare system. I think a further contribution would be in terms of ethical governance. From a point, I think I can bring independence of mind. I would be able to contribute analytical thinking. I'm committed to lawful and procedurally fair decision making, and I'm also sensitive to constitutional principles. Therefore, for me, my understanding is that the board must constantly balance economic inclusion, responsible regulation, and community safety. Insight to myself and my qualifications, I hold the following qualifications: a national diploma in policing, an advanced diploma in public administration, a master's in public administration focused on specifically on policing, and also a doctor of public administration with a thesis of community participation in the prevention of violent crime. I published widely on the evidence social crime prevention model that I've designed during my studies for my doctoral thesis. I also made various presentations to the South African Police Service, leadership and at academic conferences, and I get practical experience in governance structures and oversight environments. My current community involvement, I'm currently the chairperson of Itemba Support Group. It's an organization responsible for youth development and crime prevention. I'm also the interim chairperson of Van der Stel Evergreens Rugby Club that's currently playing the Super A League of Western Province Rugby. I'm also the chairperson of the LOC for Scotian High School a sport complex. It's a development of a 25 million rand sport complex at the school. And furthermore, I'm serving as a board member of the Van der Stel Sport Council. What's my understanding of compliance in terms of the liquor trade? I've previously served as a member of the Liquor License Tribunal, so I'm quite familiar with in terms of what they focus on in terms of compliance, in terms of license conditions, zoning and municipal requirements, trading hours, age restrictions, public safety standards, and responsible sale practices. However, for me, compliance also should consider monitoring and enforcement capability. What's the capability of the authority to monitor and enforce, administrative fairness, and there must also should be due processes and proportionality in sanctions. For me, my understanding is therefore that the board must ensure, and I think I can make a contribution in terms of it, is responsible licensing density, enforcement cooperation with South African Police Service, condition tailored to community risk profiles and protection of vulnerable communities. In the second last area was the role, what's my understanding of the role of law enforcement? Law enforcement should play a complementary role for me. I'm thinking that they need to enforce the criminal law, but they also need to play a support role in terms of inspection, and they must address public order. However, regulation should not only rely on policing. I think there needs to be a greater emphasis on prevention. We need to be preventative. We need to be structured. There need to be a focus on our administration, and we need to be predictive. We need a strong regulatory governance that reduces the burden of law enforcement. So if we can have strong regulating governance, I think there won't be such big need for enforcement. In conclusion, I view the Western Cape Liquor Authority not merely as a licensing body, but as an economic governance instrument that sits at the intersection of an economic development that's important in terms of where we are in terms of our unemployment rate in the country and in the province, regulatory compliance, public safety, and social stability. If appointed, I will serve with independence, integrity, and ethical rigor, and commitment to balancing economic opportunity with the protection of communities. Thank you, Chairperson and honorable members.
Thank you, Mr. Sigela. Member Kazaflanda.
Thank you very much, Chair. I believe doctor is in order. Dr. Proctor. Dr. Sigelaar, I'm sorry. Sir, my first question to you, what are the negative social impacts of the liquor trade, and how do you think it should be solved? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I think one of the biggest negative influence of the liquor trade is the contribution or the role that alcohol abuse play in violent crime. To me, that is the most single biggest issue that is on the negative side of the liquor trade. I would like to believe there's not enough balancing in terms of how we balance the social ills in terms of the availability of alcohol. Second to that, I think the emphasis to solve it, I would like to believe that the emphasis there should be a slight shift in focus that we become more preventative. That we have more prevention. If I look at all the existing documentation, the white paper on issued by the province in terms of social harm, the focus is on communication and awareness. However, I think we need to move a step further and looking at prevention. How can we get to a stage where we are more preventative in terms of these areas?
Question number 2. Describe the challenges of handling liquor licenses in the different communities.
Yeah, it's quite challenging. I think the first major challenge is the social conditions that we find in different communities. And I think to deal with it effectively, one should do a sort of an analysis, maybe look at the SWOT analysis, look at the strengths, weakness, and opportunities and threats in those communities, and also focusing on the usage and the reason why people in certain communities use alcohol. In affluent areas, most probably you'll find it is for relaxation. I would like to believe in the previous disadvantaged area, it's survival mode. People using alcohol to survive. And I think that is one of the biggest challenges that one needs to focus on.
Question 3. I haven't seen you drinking this water. Are you afraid of the water?
No, sir.
Eh? This is not Nkabi the commission or an ad hoc.
Thank you for the surety.
Or Madlanga commission as a former policeman. Look, here's your question 3. For certainly former policemen scared when they hear about Madlanga. How do you foresee different departments, okay, cooperating with one another to ensure a legal, vibrant industry? Let me repeat.
I think thank you. Thank you for the question. I think I've identified some of the departments in the presentation. However, as it current for me, I think there's conflicting objectives. We look at the economic Department of Economic Affairs or people in the economic environment, they only, for them is it the demand and supply. It's economic gain. There must be some economic gain. For the authority, Regulation Public Authority, it is about compliance and adherence. For the South African Police Service, it's enforcement. And for communities, it's a social problem. So the question is how do we find a common understanding? I normally say to myself, if I'm dealing with situations like that, whose reality counts? We need to ask ourselves, whose reality counts? And where can we find a common denominator? That's why I previously said, most probably, we need to ask if we can get to a stage where we focus more on prevention of those of the consequences of alcohol abuse. Then we can have a common ground. We most probably can go to the economic environment and say, but we think you've got a role to play in terms of prevention. I think currently the role is limited for people in the economic space, because for them the only important part is demand and supply. If they can create a bigger demand, it will mean gain for them. However, the opposite is true for the community. If there's a bigger supply in the community, then there's a challenge. So we need to find it, and it's going to be a difficult balancing act to find it. But I would like to believe if the focus can be more on prevention, if we can find middle ground and say, but all of us need to contribute in terms of prevention, I think then it could be a point of departure for all those different. It will lessen the burden on policing. It will lessen the burden on compliance for the authority. And I think it will also lessen the burden on our health services.
Thank you. Question 4. How do you emphasize the WCLA playing a role in expanding in growing an inclusive liquor industry, particularly assisting the economically disadvantaged?
I think that currently community participation in the whole processes of the liquor authority is not explored to the fullest. I think there's real opportunity to invest in communities. If I look at the role, for instance, of CPFs, I don't see that CPFs in communities plays a significant role in the whole process of liquor licensing. I don't see they do the necessary training or community information sessions in terms of how the processes unfold within the authority. So I think if we can get to a stage where we can get communities more involved in these processes, and not only most probably CPFs, because there's a stigma sometimes towards, but I think there are a lot of community organizations out there that got the competencies and skills to can assist the authority in dealing with the challenge.
Okay, the fifth question is if you can give an example of an ethical quandary that you have faced and how you have dealt with it. 'n etiese dilemma.
I think most probably staying in the environment of liquor and liquor licensing and compliance. My involvement with the rugby clubs, I've experienced this, and for me, sometimes it becomes an ethical challenge. Traveling from different clubs, I'm in a position where I'm at the club in the Super A, so the majority of the clubs have facilities and liquor licenses. However, if you're going to lower level clubs playing in lower levels, you experience that they don't have the facilities and they are trading in liquor and at a very small scale. And I understand why. I understand because it's for them a means of income. Or if they don't trade in it, they encourage people to bring a cooler box with them to the field. Now that's a contravention of the Liquor Act, and it's a contravention of the Western Province rugby regulations. So now the challenge is I'm visiting all those clubs on a Saturday, frequent visit. And it's a social environment, and I want to support the club. Do I buy liquor from that specific outlet at the rugby field? Do I take my own cooler box for the Saturday? I'm 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 tempted to not answer the question in full, but yeah, that's a challenge. That is for me the ethical dilemma. And from time to time, people encourage you to participate in the event. So I think there's also an area that one needs to look at home. But for me, on a Saturday, visiting those clubs is a real challenge to see what's happening, and there's nothing that you can do about it.
Thank you very much, Chair. Question number 5. What are the current problems around stakeholder and community engagement, and what are the solutions, in your view, to addressing these issues?
Stakeholder engagement and community involvement for me currently, as I've experienced it where I'm sitting, is it's more facilitative. And I'm speaking in general, I'm not referring to the authority specifically, but other institutions where I'm participating, it's more facilitative. There's no authentic participation. I think we need authentic participation. And if we want to have authentic participation, also for my doctoral thesis, I've designed a development approach to community participation. Now, for me, the first step should be social learning. We should go and learn what's going on. I think we assume, not again authority in general, uh, people assume that we know the conditions in communities. We assume that. But for me, there need to be a way of social learning. We need to go and learn what's going on in that community, and we need to go and learn from that community. That's the very first step, community participation. The second thing that goes with it is we need to build their capacity. We want people to participate, but they don't know how to participate. They don't know in terms of what to participate. So What happened in practice is now that we participate on their behalf because we've got all the answers. So we participate. So I believe that we need a strong focus on bowling communities' capacity to participate. Thirdly, I also think, and that is part of the model, they need to be empowerment. It's no use we give them capacity and we're not empowering to be part of the decision making. They need to be part of the decision making. And lastly, that must be sustainable. There must be ongoing benefits from the community partition. But currently, it's a silo for me in terms of general policy. It's a silo approach. We only want a solution for this specific problem, and it's not holistic or sustainable. So that is for me the challenge with community participation.
It's fine, but I like doing my own research on the candidates before asking the questions. And I saw that you're quite involved, especially with the youth in the community.
Exactly.
So my question relates to law enforcement. I know that you spoke a lot about law enforcement. How can modernizing technology systems help with law enforcement, specifically of the liquor trade?
I think specifically in terms of using technology, we can design different scenarios. That's the first thing that technology is very good in. We can do scenario planning. We can within, I think if we now put in three or four scenarios into any technology program, will give you most probably some direction to do planning. So for me, that is quite important that we can do scenario planning with it. And secondly, we can use it for monitoring and evaluation. I think drones is these days the in thing. You can easily replace human capital with drones to do the observation for you. And also in terms of data collection and all those information, I think it's quite critical that we make use of that in terms of our law enforcement.
Great. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. Drive carefully. On the way forward, we will finish our interviews today, and then we will forward our recommendations to the Western Cape Department, and then they'll take the process further. But thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Right, just to explain the process, I'm Benedicta van Minnen. I am the chair of this committee. We will just introduce ourselves. Then you'll have 10 minutes to do your presentation to us, after which the board will ask you 7 questions. So that's the process we're going to follow. So I've introduced myself. If I can just move to my left.
Wasim Matthews, Provincial Officer.
Good morning, Mr. Strauss, and welcome. I don't recall myself being part of the board, as the
Sorry.
chairperson just
Sorry.
indicated, but I'm a member of this committee. Welcome.
Good morning, sir. I'm Member Boyson, a member of this committee.
Good morning, sir. My name is Member Benson Rensu, a member of this committee. Preparing for the board, maybe that is why the chair was making that mistake. Thank you.
I'm Aisha Kasim, a member of this committee.
Good morning, Mr. Strauss. I'm Donita Stevens. I'm a member of the committee.
Good morning. I'm Peter Johnson, member of the committee.
Great, thank you. So if you're ready, it is now 10:14 and you have 10 minutes on the presentation. Just pretty, yeah, there we go.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, honorable members. Thank you for the opportunity to come and see you guys and being part of this interview. My name is Frederick Sebastian Strauss, and I am applying for the board member position at the Western Cape Liquor Authority. Just in terms of a brief background, we stay in the northern suburbs, in the Brackenfell area. My wife and 3 children, and I am currently finance manager at Lexcor RMC JB, where I have some sort of a hybrid job between the Northern Cape and the working from home. I have obtained a MPhil in fraud risk management and MPhil in development finance. I am 46 years now, so I'm now in the twilight of my career. So I have over 20 years experience in finance and governance. I worked at for 2.5 years as chief financial officer at Kamisberg local municipality, where I really learned a lot about how local government functions. Like I said, I'm the finance manager at Alexor RMC joint venture, and I'm also currently the chairperson of the Fraud and Risk Committee at the West Coast District Municipality, which is there in Mauriceburg. I have studied quite a bit these last 5-6 years, so I have main qualifications, like I said, is the 2 master's degrees. I'm currently busy, started with a 3rd master's degree in leadership, which I haven't put in this presentation. I've also done the MFMP course, which relates to the local government. And then my expertise is in governance, risk management, and regulatory compliance. Why I'm suitable for the board: I have a strong background in governance and financial oversight, extensive experience working with regulators, auditors, and treasury. I've worked closely with board and committee oversight and have experience in that regard. And I think I have a fair understanding of public accountability and compliance. The value that I think I can add is strengthening governance and accountability, risk-based oversight on processes, especially the licensing processes, improve compliance monitoring systems, data-driven oversight, and policy oversight. And I haven't had experience in liquor trade as yet, but from a governance and risk perspective, the areas that I think would be crucial is ensuring lawful licensing processes, monitoring compliance with license conditions, the preventing illegal liquor trading, and protecting community safety with enabling legitimate business. In terms of balancing regulation and economic growth, in the Western Cape, the liquor sector supports tourism and hospitality. It creates jobs and opportunities for small businesses. So it requires a balanced regulation to protect communities, but also responsible trading must be ensured for sustainable growth in the liquor industry. Just a quick touch on the role on law enforcement. There should be collaboration with South African police services and municipal law enforcement of license conditions and trading hours, the combating of illegal trading, and the supporting of so that we have safer communities. Just to touch on addressing social harm, alcohol abuse contributes to violence, accidents, and crime. So there is a need for responsible trading and enforcement. There should be community engagements and awareness on the effects of overconsumption of alcohol, and there should be a balanced regulatory oversight. And just in conclusion, strong governance and risk management background, experience in both public sector and regulated industries, commitment to responsible economic development, goal is strengthen governance and support safe communities. Thank you, Chairperson and honorable members.
Thank you very much. Now for our questions, Member Kaiser Philander.
Thank you very much, Chair. So the first question, what are the negative social impacts of the liquor trade and how do you think it should be solved?
Yeah, I'm from the Northern Cape mining towns, so that is where I grew up, and especially in our parts of the world, overconsumption of alcohol was a everyday occurrence, especially under the miners, and we could see the effects of domestic violence, the harm it had on the children, and I mean I can recall a lot of friends that went through the same thing. So the effects is over negative effects, overconsumption. People drink out their salaries. So there must be a balanced approach, and from what I would suggest from the trading, the liquor authority is there should be outreach programs for the effects on alcohol abuse and intense programs, especially within the vulnerable communities. There is no one fit solution. It is an ongoing thing, and so not just working with communities and just driving programs. but also outreach with social development interaction is to especially targeting vulnerable communities. And we know in South Africa we like to drink, so it is a problem. But the solution must be a sustainable solution that targets. We can't close down the liquor industry. So yeah, it's an area that will need a lot of. Unfortunately, I don't have the answer on how to deal with it directly and say that there will be no more alcohol abuses, but it is a systematic approach that needs to be followed, and the liquor board must play its part in being part of that solution to have a responsible industry. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Strauss, question number 2. Describe the challenges of handling liquor licenses in different communities.
Yeah, I like like I indicated, I haven't worked in the liquor industry, so I'm more seeing it from a general type of observation. Um, we, in terms of issuing liquor licenses, I suggest there is a process how these licenses are issued within a law. Um, we should just be as a from where I'm sitting, the issuing of licenses within communities, and I can relate. There was where I worked in Garis at the Kamisberg local municipality. They were issuing a license or wanted to issue a license in the middle of the community, which is a small community, and there were a lot of complaints from the community side with regards to that specific issuing of license, with if it becomes a tavern, with the noise and the policing of it, and how it affects the community, that immediate community. So I think those are the factors that needs to be taken into account um, before issuing these licenses, especially within close communities.
Thank you.
Mr. Yeah, well done. Well done. I'm the only person, I'm one person who's concerned about the plight of our candidates here, you know, and want to enhance their relationship with water. Okay. Here's question 3, Mr. Strauss. How do you foresee different departments cooperating, you know, with one another to ensure a legal, vibrant industry in this instance?
Thank you. Thank you for the tough question. Yes, in my presentation, I briefly touched on the role players, and while I was answering first or second question. So I foresee that we have the liquor authority that issues these licenses, but within that, especially if I can make an example of a tavern, there should be proper policing. There should be um, not just the SAPS if an incident occurs, but also the municipal law enforcement. But that goes hand in hand with the social department of social that deals with social issues. Can't recall the correct name. Just to think of the incident that occurred, I think it was in the Eastern Cape, where a lot of the young people diet can be, I think it can be used as an example where once the investigation was done and the facts were revealed, was that there wasn't proper policing in that area, the building, the trading hours, and it's very unfortunate that an incident like that exposes the flaws in the system, which could have been prevented. So not just the liquor authority should not just be reactive, but also there is areas that can be prevented if everyone operates within the rules and regulations. But yeah, there needs to be synergies between departments, and you can't operate it as a standalone institution. Thank you.
How do you emphasize the WCLA playing a role in expanding and growing an inclusive liquor industry, particularly assisting the economically disadvantaged?
Yeah, the questions keeps on getting tougher. Thank you. No, a very good question. Think in my presentation I just covered a bit of it, that besides the regulation of alcohol, um, of liquor, the liquor authority needs to have a balance between the creation of jobs and enhancing the industry. So first of all, there needs to be a fair balance. Normally, I don't know how many of you have gone to small towns in Namibia, especially areas like Rospina. When you go out of the mining town, you get where we call the Lokasi. Then you would see 20, 30 of these same taverns just next to each other, which I don't see how that can be sustainable. But anyway, that is how they operate. I don't think that's the answer in just issuing licenses all over. The it, the Western Cape is a well-run province, so in terms of job creation, I think it is better off than other provinces. So there needs to be a balance. So the first thing I'm saying is that we can't just issue these licenses just saying you were previously disadvantaged. So there also needs to be collaboration with, for example, the economic trade departments within the Western Cape, and then there should be a balance between where these areas are located and how it's contributing to jobs. We know that tourism, restaurants, they Cape Town has some of the best restaurants. It is one of the most visited cities in the world. I think in the top 4 when you see the ratings of the most beautiful places, holiday destinations in Cape Town. They will also be in the top 10 at least. So we need to capitalize on this beautiful image that Cape Town has, but also do it responsibly. And there will always be with the legacy issues of previously disadvantaged individuals. But we can't just now go and say, okay, we issuing 50,000 liquor licenses to everyone that was previously disadvantaged, but there's no business case or the location of the area, or it doesn't tap into the vibrancy and the tourism sector. So not just issuing licenses, but the liquor authority should also investigate how does issuing of licenses, especially in small, previously disadvantaged areas, enhance work, enhance employment and opportunities, and how does that tap into the liquor license? I haven't done the in Joburg. They when you go to where um, President Nelson Mandela used to stay, but for example, it's a previously disadvantaged area, but they tapping into having tourism in that area and how it is uh, yeah, thank you.
Give an example of an ethical quandary that you faced and how you dealt with it.
Can you repeat that again? Thank you.
Give an example of an ethical quandary that you faced and how you have dealt with it.
Does quandary refer now to a situation?
'n Etiese dilemma, ja.
Oh, it is a dilemma. Oh. Yeah, having a master's in fraud risk management has made me aware of a lot of ethical issues, especially working in local government. It is a well-known fact that um, fraud and corruption is rampant in local municipalities. Um, so we you when I worked at Kamisberg, one of the issues was, and they currently now under investigation, um, for fraud and corruption. There's been, I think, twice they in the process of issuing arrest warrants. But for me, I mean, you work in a small community, you get to know the guys. So the ethical dilemma is always, even though you're not part of the craft of the fraud and corruption, the question is, would you keep quiet or would you support it? Or uh, support the police investigation. So one of my things that I pride myself on is ethical leadership, um, and so I had to make the choice: do I turn a blind eye or say I don't know what happened, or support the police with the investigation? Tough decision, but the right decision, which I will always defend. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Question number 6. So what are the current problems around stakeholders and community engagements, and what are the solutions, in your view, to address those issues? Thank you.
Yeah, I must say we've been living 10 years. This is the 11th year in Brackenfell where we built the house. And since I've stayed there, I've never heard of any community engagement from any institution. So, and w- yeah, so when I saw this job and the advert on it, then you start to read more up and what this relates to. But if I haven't had this interview, I wouldn't have heard about Western Cape Liquor Authority and what they are doing, and especially my experience in Brackenfell. I stayed at Pentec for then Belleville 5, 6 years when I studied there. And so the outreach programs. And when we were students, we were drinking. We went every Friday and Saturday night to the barn there at UWC. So I haven't come across my time in Cape Town hearing about any outreach program. Um, so in terms of if there's outreach programs, where is it done? Who is the target audience? And how do we reach these communities? So sorry, I'm asking questions on this, but in terms of my personal experience, I don't know what the outreach programs is, but as a citizen, I haven't come across them. So I think the answer is when you have these outreach programs, who are we targeting? Why are we targeting? When are we targeting them? Because alcohol abuse is not just in Mitchell's Plain or Kailicha. You can go to any function, then you'll see a lot of abuse. That is my experience. So um, if there is outreach programs, it needs to be really visible. Thank you. Ooh, is this now the last question? The most difficult question for last. No, thank you very much. We live in an era of digitalization. Everyone is, or most of the people have access to cell phones. I just observe my kids, and I used to be the leader in the house, knowing technology, and but nowadays, yeah, they've overtaken me, and they're only 9 and 12 years old. I think the I've when I yeah, I was fortunate when I was in Italy. I was still studying at University of Stellenbosch, and I got a scholarship to go to for a week to Venice, which is Venice, Italy is just holiday tourist destination place. And one of the areas that we focus on was them becoming a smart city or being a smart city and how they use technology. So we went to the control room, and it was amazing what they were doing there, just in terms of where people are, where cell phone reception is. I don't know where Cape Town stands within that, but you could immediately see where people are. So, for example, if you have taverns and you see it is 3 o'clock in the morning, but you still have cell phone reception of 300 people there, you can immediately pick it up and it should send a message to law enforcement. But I've read that Cape Town wants to become a smart city. I don't know how far they are in that process, but there is definitely what I've seen with my own eyes is how they manage that and how then these records talk to what they observe, sends out automated messages to different people and different um, institutions. So if we are in that space and it's 5 a.m. in the morning and you have this type of technology and you can see, but there's 50, 100 people still there at that place that trades, you can immediately send a notice to the police that something is happening there. It's outside of their trading hours. Please go and investigate. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Really appreciate that. Thank you for coming in. Going forward, we finish our interviews today. Then we will send our recommendations to the department, who will take it further from there. But thank you very much. Thank you for coming in. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, honorable members. Keep up with the good work. Thank you.
Hello, thank you very much for joining us. My name is Benedicta van Minnen. I am the chair of the Standing Committee. In terms of housekeeping, we'll introduce everybody. Then you will get 10 minutes for your presentation, which I see is loaded, followed by 7 questions from the committee. Great. So yes, I've introduced myself. I can just go around the table.
Good morning, Wasim Matthews, Procedural Officer.
Good morning, Wendy Kaiser Philander, and I'm a member of this committee. Welcome.
Good morning. I'm Memory Boyson. I'm a member of this committee, but through you, Chairperson, it would be very interesting for me to know how she pronounces her name. Thank you, Lita.
You should have asked me because I'm just next. Good morning. My name is Benson Mensu, a member of this committee. Thanks.
Good morning, Ashikasi, member of this committee.
Good morning, Lita. Donita Stevens, member of this committee.
Good morning, Peter Johnson, member of this committee.
Can you correct the member? She's not later. She's later.
No intimidation of the applicants. Okay, so if you're ready, we can do 10 minutes on the presentation. It's now 10:47, and it's over to you.
Okay, perfect. Morning, everyone. Thank you so much for your time and for the opportunity. As I've mentioned, my name is Lita van der Eems. So I have a legal background and I have quite a deep interest in developing communities. I've worked with my local ratepayers association for almost 10 years. Yeah, I'm presently serving as a candidate attorney, and where I specialize in mostly litigation type of matters. In 2024, I completed my practical legal training with the Cape Law Society, and I've previously also worked for the City of Cape Town, worked as a legal research assistant, and I've also worked as a coordinator in an international office as well as a project manager. So just some brief background on my civic involvement. Like I've mentioned, I've been part of the Milnerton Ratepayers Association since 2017, and I've served on the City of Cape Town Ward Committee for 3 years, and I've also been a member of my local neighbourhood watch for some time. My text dense, for which I apologize. Through my experience on the Ratepayers Committee, we've considered many liquor license applications throughout the years, and we've considered the comments and objections from the community for most of them. And that introduced me to sort of the legislative background, the policies, the procedures of considering liquor license applications, and then also in tandem with that, how you balance the community interests and the challenges that communities face with, the legal process. So like I said, it required me to engage with the policy processes, the regulatory frameworks, and the stakeholder environments. And over time, I have developed my ability to analyze issues from both sort of a legal and a governance perspective. And then also, my time working with the City of Cape Town and on the Ward Committee has also provided me with some practical exposure to the local governance and municipal oversight. And it's been very, fundamental in shaping my understanding regarding these processes. Then on the other side of things, working with the Neighbourhood Watch in crime-ridden communities where, there's a lot of poverty, a lot of crime, gender-based violence, etc. You get to understand how liquor outlets and, alcohol abuse affect those communities. Then I've been asked to just indicate a few points on how I believe I could add some value and contribution. So I believe I have a combined experience through civic involvement, law and governance, which does give me a good background. My legal training has given me sort of a solid understanding of the regulatory frameworks, administrative law, compliance oversight, and the importance of lawful and procedurally fair decision making, all of which is important for the governance of such a regulatory body. As I've already mentioned, I've been involved in the Ratepayers Association as well as the Neighbourhood Watch, where I served on a variety of portfolios, all often dealing with liquor license applications, and I've dealt with many different liquor license matters over time. Just some points on how I believe I could contribute. So I have an experience on how the liquor trade impact communities. I have a legal background, and I wish to really contribute to a evidence-based and balanced decision-making regarding liquor regulation. And then also, building collaboration between the authority and local communities, so that there's a very much a collaborative approach and an understanding approach. Then also, we also need to consider balancing economic opportunities as South Africa. South Africa is really, we have an unemployment crisis. So we need to understand and balance economic activity. We have a huge tourism industry, restaurant industry, which is all kind of contributors to our economy. And we need to understand how to balance fair regulations within the liquor licensing space. Okay, then just my understanding on compliance in the liquor trade, the balance of job creation, and then the role of law enforcement and social ill in the liquor licensing space. I'm just going to give an overview of the constitutional and the legislative framework. So liquor licensing is primarily a provincial competency, emanating from Schedule 5 of the Constitution. At the same time, we have a piece of national legislation, which is, of course, the National Liquor Act of 2003, which sort of sets national norms and standards for liquor licensing. Then the key piece of legislation is, of course, your Provincial Act, the Western Cape Liquor Act, as amended in 2015, which sort of sets out exactly all the legislative processes of how liquor is governed within the Western Cape. And then we also have the province's broader alcohol-related harms reduction policy framework, which looks a lot at, how do we balance the encouragement of economic opportunities within the liquor space with alcohol-related harms within our communities, and how, from a policy perspective, how do we balance those two elements? Just some basics items that the Act provides for. So it's an independent authority and juristic person, which is the Western Cape Liquor Authority. Then it creates the governing board. It creates the Liquor Licensing Tribunal, which has a quasi-judicial function, and then also the Appeal Tribunal, which is a appeal, sort of the appeal body of the tribunal. And then we have the administrative operational component, which is then, of course, led by the CEO. Then we have just a little bit of a quick breakdown on who does what. You have the Liquor Authority, which regulates the retail sale and micro manufacturing of liquor in the province. You have the governing board, which is the accounting authority and the strategic oversight body of the authority. And you have the tribunal, the appeal tribunal, and the administration. I'm not going to go into too much detail. We don't run out of time there. Then the licensing system in practice. I'm not sure if I'm given the limited time if I'm going to go through all of the processes, but that is just my understanding of how the process goes through the various steps. What I want to also emphasize here is it's very much based on the system is sort of surrounded by the public interest test. So you need to consider what is in the public interest when we are going through this process for a particular license. You need to balance, you need to decide on a balance of probabilities. Is this going to serve in the public interest? Right, and then I think an important component of the liquor licensing process is, of course, the municipal input. Local government works closely with their local communities, your ward councillors, your ward committees, your civic-based organizations, your CPFs, and they understand what the challenges are on the ground. So I think that is also very important that you do that this is integrated within the legislation and within the process. Okay, and then of course your municipalities has input within, you know, your trading hours, and they need to provide a report to the tribunal when the license is being considered. Then I just did a quick overview of like what is compliance with your licensing conditions? What does compliance actually mean within the context of the Act? It's not just having a license. It's compliance with the Act and the regulations, your specific license conditions, your trading hours, your age restrictions, access restrictions for minors, approved premises use, compliance notices, your related planning and local government requirements, because of course you have to have a zoning, you have to have a commercial zoning if you want to have a liquor license. And then just very briefly, how do we monitor compliance? So what I find quite interesting about your liquor license legislation is that you have compliance through your compliance inspectors, which is appointed by the authority, and then you also have a dual function from SAPS through their liquor officer. So there's sort of an integration between your provincial authority and your national authority through SAPS. Okay, your pre-licensing inspections, that is your routine compliance inspections, your complaint investigations, compliance notices, Section 73 referrals for prosecution before the liquor licensing tribunal, and then integrated enforcement operations, which is done collaboratively by your law enforcement, your SAPS, and your liquor license inspectors. And I'm not going to cover the points from the annual report. I'm not going to run out of time there. Then your enforcement tools, just have a look quickly. In the event that you do not comply, and there's an instance of non-compliance, a compliance notice may be issued. The recipient can dispute it. The CEO will decide on whether it stands. And should the breach continue, it may result in referral and prosecution before the liquor licensing tribunal. And then a sanction can be imposed, including a warning, a fine, stricter conditions, and suspension or revocation. Then I'm touching here just again on the integrated nature of compliance and enforcement. Chair, how am I doing with time?
I was going to say you should start finishing up the last couple of minutes.
Okay, perfect. I think I'm going to then finish off with considering the balance between job creation and the social harm that is caused by alcohol abuse, which is a big problem in South Africa and particularly also the Western Cape. So the province's current strategic plan says that liquor regulation must be a balance between economic growth and public safety. And it specifically notes that the risk of regulatory measures that might stifle small businesses and local producers. Just a brief analysis from my side then. So the Western Cape approach is best understood as trying to strike a regulated development compromise. So we're not looking at strict prohibition. It doesn't treat every license as socially beneficial by default. And then it treats the liquor trade as a legitimate economic activity, but only where the operation thereof can be reconciled with the public interest. So once again, you have that balance between the public interest and legitimate economic activity. So liquor trading creates lawful economic activity for the most part, and there is, like I mentioned before, there's a very big industry and small businesses that uses the sale of liquor for their businesses and as an economic sort of an economic like economic contribution. But we cannot use liquor licensing as just, we can't say that just because we have, just because it's an economic, it provides economic activity, that we can just approve left, right, and center. You once again need to have that balance. So we need to, once again, compliance is the bridge between economic activity and social protection. Okay, and then just looking at the social ills component. I mean, research and statistics have clearly and repeatedly shown that there are a lot of social harms that is associated with alcohol misuse, and that includes, but is not limited to, crime and violence, domestic violence, GBV, road accidents, health burdens, underage drinking, etc. But what we must move towards, as per the Western Cape Liquor Authority strategic plan, is that we must move towards safe, caring, and resilient communities, and that the enforcement of licensing should be aimed towards harm reduction rather than only reacting as harm occurs. Therefore, we need to take a more proactive approach as opposed to a reactive approach.
I think you're going to have to finish your last slide then, yeah.
That's perfect. Yeah, so in essence, as a quick conclusion, it's not merely the Western Cape liquor license, it's not merely a commercial permit system. It's an integrated public law governance regime that's built on provincial constitutional competence, and it's shaped by national norms. It is operationalized through the Western Cape Liquor Authority, the Governing Board, the LLT, and the Appeal Tribunal, inspectors, SAPs, and municipalities. And the governing idea is, like I mentioned, it's the public interest. And this concept requires that the province should hold two realities together at once: the liquor trade that supports job creation, tourism, and enterprise, but also consider the alcohol misuse and poor regulation that generates severe social costs. The compliance and enforcement model is therefore designed not to eliminate the trade, but rather to permit only that the liquor activity, which can be justified as lawful, manageable, and socially defensible. Ultimately, the role of the Western Cape Liquor Authority is to ensure that liquor regulation serves the public interest. It also needs to support responsible economic activity while protecting communities from social-related harms. And
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Right. Member Kaiser.
Thank you very much, Chair. Ms. van der Eems, thank you very much for your extensive presentation. You have made mention in your presentation of the negative social impacts, and I believe the next question or the first question is based on exactly that, so you will have an opportunity to elaborate on that. So what are the negative social impacts of the liquor trade, and how do you think it should be solved?
Look, I think the negative social implication of the liquor trade is many. Okay, so you have gender-based violence that comes as a result of alcohol misuse. You have crime that is increased again by alcohol misuse. Underage drinking can be encouraged if your premises is not correctly licensed, if there's no sufficient compliance and enforcement. It's a big problem. Underage drinking. Then also, assault. What's it called now? Yeah, just I mean crime in general, and I've personally experienced this. I've assisted previously one of the poorer communities in my ward. So I live in Ward 4 in the city of Cape Town. And that poor and vulnerable community, it's mostly township area. And, I've assisted them with objecting to a particular liquor outlet within their community. It was drinking throughout the night, nuisance, people shouting and screaming, stabbing each other with knives, women getting assaulted in the area. So yeah, like just to wrap it up, mainly crime, gender-based violence, public drinking nuisance, the list goes on. Sorry, and the solutions towards that. So like I've mentioned in my presentation, we need to maintain a balanced approach. We need to look, okay, what is in the public interest? Is this outlet going to serve the community? Does it balance economic opportunities? Because we need to remember liquor trading provides a lot of job opportunities. If we eliminate liquor trading, whether it's in the restaurant industry, liquor stores, bottle stores, it creates a lot of job opportunities, particularly in your poorer communities. So stricter enforcement, we need to honestly be able to say that, do we have sufficient capacity to enforce, to inspect premises, to revoke licenses, to suspend licenses, etc. So it all comes down to efficient enforcement.
Question number 2. Describe the challenges of handling liquor licenses in different communities.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to a story of, once again, where I assisted one of my poorer communities with objections to a liquor license. When we put forward the objections to the relevant City of Cape Town sub-council, the residents that put forward the objections were quite, I wouldn't necessarily want to use the word uneducated, but they didn't have the privilege of having a good background education system. They were quite poor. And what happened is, when they put together the objection, they started receiving calls from the outlet owner, very intimidating calls, to say that they must watch their back. They are not supposed to be. They are threatening this outlet, and there's people employed there. And so they were very scared, and they were too scared to come and make representations at the sub-council. Compare that to liquor licenses within a more affluent community. Firstly, you need to remember that Normally, there's a lot of private security. More affluent communities have the privilege of having private security to monitor, go around, enforce. So there's a more sort of active presence within those affluent communities, and I would say so. It's more difficult for an outlet to be non-compliant within a more affluent community than one to be non-compliant in a less affluent community. So yeah, I think resources, your less affluent communities have less resources to be able to protect themselves and make their voices heard versus your affluent communities.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Question 3. How do you foresee different departments cooperating with one another to ensure a legal, vibrant industry?
Different departments, are you referring to provincial departments, or are you referring to different spheres of government?
Departments are posed within the context of the Western Cape Liquor Board.
Okay, perfect. So, like I've mentioned in my presentation, when it comes to the enforcement of liquor licenses, you have various stakeholders that's working together to enforce and ensure that outlets are compliant. That includes your local law enforcement. It includes SAPS, your liquor officer. It includes your municipalities, and then of course your liquor license inspectors from the liquor authority. Right. So those are the different departments that's involved in the compliance. But now we need to remember that you also have your social element. So in that instance, you would want to bring in your social development department to address sort of the social harms that comes from alcohol abuse and non-compliant outlets.
Dankie. Question 4. How do you emphasize that WCL are playing a role in expanding and growing an inclusive liquor industry, particularly assisting the economically disadvantaged?
So an inclusive
liquor industry, particularly assisting the economically disadvantaged.
Okay, so I think, like I said in my presentation, we need to look at economic at your economic balancing the public interest with your economic activity, and economic activity within the liquor licensing space is very much it's very broad within your poorer communities. There's a lot of jobs that is being created. So what I would say is expanding your educational type of programs, educating your communities on liquor licensing and the liquor space in general, educating them on compliance. What are the signals? What must they look out for? When must they report, etc. So I think, yeah, in addition to expanding the enforcement operations and making sure that our vulnerable communities do get the benefit of strict enforcement, and making sure that liquor license outlets within those communities are properly regulated. Also, in addition to that, then also expanding the educational part of things.
Okay, the fifth question is if you can give an example of an ethical quandary that you have faced and how did you deal with it? Any ethical quandary, professional or personal?
So does it have to be linked with the liquor space, or can it be anything?
Any ethical quandary, personal or professional.
Okay. So like I mentioned, I'm currently a candidate attorney, and I do get clients with who committed crimes, who come to us, and we need to defend them. And at some point, I had a client earlier this year who who was caught for shoplifting. And he came to us to represent him, and I was the CA on the matter. And he actually, admitted to me that he did. In fact, he is in fact guilty. And I just felt like, as a legal professional, you're not allowed to mislead the court that in any way. And so I decided to withdraw from that matter. But I think that counts for any judicial board, quasi-judicial sort of board or collective.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Question number 6, Ms. van der Eems. What are the current problems around stakeholder and community engagement, and what, in your view, are the solutions to addressing those?
Specifically, is this specifically within the liquor licensing space or generally? So I think communities, I feel in general, from my personal experience, communities are not well enough equipped to understand the reporting processes. When they see an issue with a liquor license, with a or liquor outlet that is negatively affecting their community, they don't understand what the process is to actually rectify that problem. So I think there could be a greater sort of outreach and community involvement in that regard. Secondly, I would say the public participation when it comes to liquor licenses. Sometimes it, we just advertise it in the local newspaper. We table it at sub-council meetings. We notify the ward councillor. But what is actually being done to get the actual input of the communities? Are they actually being tangibly involved? And do they actually understand what is the implications going to be? So once again, I think when it comes to a public participation, we need to look into that to make that more tangible and make it more meaningful.
Kasim?
Modernizing technology systems. That's an interesting one. Look, I think the Western Cape has been at the forefront of embracing technology, and whether it is policing or within, other government departments. I certainly think there is international trends that one can look at. How do they do things internationally with countries that are facing sort of the similar issues to what we are? From a technology perspective, what one needs to understand and consider is that firstly, we need to ensure that we have proper resources, that your enforcement resources are at a very good standard and a good level. Then you can start looking at improving that even further with technology. But yeah, I think one can always look into, incorporating some kind of AI, developing an app where people can, easily report which law enforcement agencies can use. I'm not a very tech savvy person, but one can definitely look into those kind of things.
Great. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for coming in. I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
In terms of going forward, we finish our interviews today. And then we will be sending our recommendations to the department, and the department will then be taking it from there.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you everyone for your time.
Thank you. May I suggest that we then take a bit of a break to allow the PO to put together all the scoring, and then we can have a deliberations. Before we get to that, let us think to ourselves whether or not we want the deliberations to be open or closed. And then we can discuss that when we get back. Approximately how much time will you need? 4 times, what, 8?
Calling reinforcements today just to double check my stuff.
Okay.
Yes. All one persons.
It's 11:22. Should we say 12 o'clock? Is that too soon?
No, I'll be able to do before that. I just remember cast.
Chair,
Okay, I'll only take this sheets.
I need to be at the visa office.
No problem. We can excuse you.
Thank you.
From you.
Yeah, just given our scores. So let's say between quarter to 12 and 12, except for obviously someone's going to get the visa, is going to tell me how far the walk is. Thanks very much. See you, Nana. Okay, we're back online. Committee, in terms of our deliberations, so do we wish to do it closed or do we wish to do it open? Do we have any proposals? Makazi Philander?
Chairperson, thank you. Yes, I think in terms of the process itself yesterday and today, it was opened. It was a transparent process, but I think the committee should be allowed the opportunity based on what we're going to decide and the motivations for the scores given. The meeting should thus be closed. Thank you, Chair.
And we got support for that? Okay, from Member Boyson. Thank you very much. Okay, so in terms of the legislation, we're then going to close the meeting for the deliberations, please. Okay, everyone, these are the scores. Can everyone see them? Yeah, Resident Communist needs glasses. So it's two vacancies. Do we want to nominate two people or do we want to maybe nominate a couple more so that the department A has a bit of leeway, but B also, in case one of them decides not to take it up, we don't have to do this again. Member Johnson?
Thanks, Chair. I would like to propose that we put the top three to the department and then give a little bit of leeway.
Sichla, Marshall, Mbala, Liebenberg, Van Kemps, Fredericks, Akoyana, Lebet, Proctor, Strauss, and Neertler. Do we want to motivate for any changes or should we go with the top four there? Yes.
The committee, we do the interviews and then we put to the minister the or the top three or top four or top whatever list. But it's still up to the minister to appoint whoever she wants, as far as my understanding, that it's the same as the Gambling and Racing Board. So whether we put a candidate, move a candidate up or down, if we take the top four, which the third candidate meets the sort of requirements that member Ngwensu just referred to, I would then say let's just put the top four to the minister or the department, and it's still up to her discretion, even if she wants to appoint the 10th person on the list. Although we just put the top four to her.
Okay. Do we have support for, yes, Member Boyson?
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I support that. It covers the recommendation, but we might even not even get the top four. And number 12 goes through based on a certain criteria that the department would look into.
Member Kazi-Philander?
Thank you very much, Chair. I think for progress and integrity, we should bear in mind that that is the the sequence in which members scored based on the interviews that were conducted. So it is incumbent upon the department that might consider other factors when it comes to the membership already of the board compromising and those that they want to add to the existing board. So I think I will withstand that we do recommend the first four candidates and leave it up to the department to make the ultimate decision accordingly. Thanks, Chair.
What I like is the top four are very nice and diverse, 2 men, 2 women, and it's a good mix of sort of representativity. Remember?
No. I'm not. Okay. We are a committee, and we are undertaking this process as a basis to advise the MEC, right? And now, and of course, the MEC was she had the power and authority to appoint any person from the four, but I don't think we should posture as if we do not look at what is obtained. For instance, when I made a point requesting this, was for us to be able to ensure that whatever recommendation we make is within the context of addressing existing gaps. And I don't want to assume and say that the MEC will be able to do that or not, right? I don't want to create any assumption, but for us that the committee was deliberate, firstly, given our oversight role, that we looked at what is existing, right? And given the current state of affairs and the existing gaps, right, we believe that this should be what? These are the submission in their order of priority. For that reason that I was calling for a reconfiguration as a basis of seeking to close the existing gap. Thanks.
Okay, the problem is that, I mean, one's making the assumption that one needs somebody who is physically challenged. But for example, if you look at the other gaps, I think, for example, Dr. Sichler really brings enormous value. All of the top four bring enormous value in very specialized fields. So it's very difficult for us to decide which should take priority, which is why nominating the top four, in my personal opinion, covers those gaps very nicely. And we've got broad support for that. Is there any other motivation you'd like to bring? Because the problem is if one's going to take somebody out of the top four to replace them with somebody who's sitting at number 9, one's going to need to be able to justify that.
Chairperson, but based on your point, normally with these type of processes, when there's an appeal, whoever appeals from that list would require to be issued with this list. And the advert itself did not explicitly state that, because I'm just making an example. If we take number 11 and in a reshuffle, in a reconfigured list, we take number 11, we go and put number 11, number 1 or number 2, and for whatever reasons, which we would then give hypothetically. But then whoever appeals would then go back to the original advert and say that reasons given by the panel or the committee were not explicitly stated during the advert. Just as an example, the advert must say,
I'm with you.
Yeah, the advert must say preference would be given for 1, 2, and 3. And if that's not being in the advert, then we might run into trouble. So if we leave the list as per the scoring, the concerns raised in terms of preference, because I'm convinced what number is that? Number 4. Number 4 covers, what we really want to achieve. So it's just the outcome of the process, and the minister could then specifically zoom into that, and that's the minister's call.
Fair enough.
No, I was still on the floor. For instance, we are told there that the board has 5 members, right? 3 males and 2 females, right? I was looking at, I did look at it in the website yesterday, right? Just that I don't, now, what were we going to do if number 2 was a woman, was a male, for instance? Certainly, would be forced, right, to address that gap and say, no, we can't send 2 males. We can't. We can't send 2 males. You see? So that is why, despite the powers and the discretion the MEC should have, but for the committee not to be deliberate in its submission, then that has the potential to doubt us in respect to forward looking in this instance. However, the point has been made, there is the 4, it is submitted, then the MEC will choose from that 4, And but I am firm to say a reconfiguration will address 2 things. Firstly, the national question, and 2, the question of people living with disability. And that I think is lacking not only in the board but also in the executive of the liquor board. As a body, because that society is quite important.
I think we're indulging in speculation, saying what if.
Yes.
These are the 4 we have. They have come out as a very diverse group, as a group that have very specific skills. So there is the majority support in the committee for the top 4. Do you want us to note your position on the issue of physically challenged communities?
Yes, and also the initial question. That should be noted. That should be recorded as my opinion.
Well, we'll
on
put
the-
that in. We'll record your opinion.
Yeah.
But then we will recommend the top 4 to the minister. And hopefully we don't have to do these interviews again for a while. Thank you very much, everybody. And I really want to thank you enormously for everything that you've done. We seem really appreciated. In terms of process, do we open the meeting and then recommend the top 4?
Sorry, Chair, open the meeting, and then I prepared a draft report. It's not compulsory, but I think it's always a nice way to end off our process, to say this, we've done it and whatever. It's a very generic report. The only thing I must maybe include here is the committee, having received the candidates, proceeded to interview 11. Following deliberations, resolved to submit, you could say,
Top 4.
the top 4 highest scoring interviewees. To the governing board of the Western Cape Liquor Authority, to the provincial, for the governing board, for the provincial commissioner to provincial minister.
Let's not money
Oh,
board is even further.
for the governing board of the Western Cape Liquor Authority, to the provincial minister of police, community. Oh my word, what's happening? Police oversight and community safety. To consider.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't worry, it's
Good
only
job.
about another week and a half to eat.
So I think I'm operating on financial year ends there. Following, I think this should be fine. Let me just make it more visible for the entire report.
My concern?
And just note, member Mwentu's concerns.
Does the concern not be capsulated in the minutes,
Yeah.
not in
Okay.
the report itself?
What we could suggest is that in the letter to the minister is to say that this is the list that the committee has done. We've gone through all the processes, and we recommend appointing from this list, and that the minister considers several or all concerning factors in the appointment.
And then I think in the minutes put in,
Yes.
in members' concern. Yes.
Chairperson, I'd like to change that. I don't want us to sound prescriptive.
Okay.
But the minutes can reflect the opinion of members.
Yes. Okay. All right. Okay, all right. Yes.
Look, minutes in the report. You know, when you have a report, you are not compelled to go to the minutes. The first thing is a report. You know, and if you are happy with the report, you don't need to go to a minute. Minutes is for just for recording. For that reason, that I would like to propose that that fundamental concern, right, be highlighted in the report.
Member?
Chairperson, I disagree with that. In any process of parliament, recommendations are based on the outcome of the committee and not on individual perceptions or whatever.
Okay.
Not individual views. It's the committee's report.
Okay, all right. So we'll put it in the minutes, we'll note it in the minutes, but the report is just going to be what the recommendation is then.
Let me remind the committee. The committee should from time to time consider listening quite attentively to a view of the so-called minority.
Of the?
Of the so-called minority in a meeting. Now, because even at the last engagement, that's how my views were treated, right? Even now, I'm experiencing that. And I know I am going to experience this throughout the term. But I think reasoning, right, should be used. A view can be reconfigured, but the view I'm putting forward is not a partisan view, right? It's a view in the best interest of the process, in the best interest of the institution. Same views which have made us to be where we are, for instance, today. Of which today the past 2 days were the rich discussions, right? And the interviews were quite insightful. And now we're presenting the MEC with a pool. Yet previously, you yourselves, members, were insisting on one or two. Now, here, when this is captured, phrase, it is not going, I'm not saying it should be phrased as Benson's view, right? It should be phrased, right? I mean, let me phrase it poorly, right? And say, right? Given the state of or the outlook of the board as well as the entity, right? The issue of people living with disability was quite important. You know, whatever phrase it can be properly put. I mean, I can't phrase it now as I'm speaking. That's the issue Benson is raising. Than saying record in a report that Benson raised this and that. A report is not about individual, but it's about the essence of what Benson is raising. So I want to appeal to the conscience of the committee that let us attempt to interface with every view with a particular high level of reasoning and not treat it with partisan suspicions. Thanks.
Look, no one's treating anything with partisan suspicions. It's just that we need to do there's two things. There's the minutes, and we'll put everything in the minutes, obviously. Then there's the recommendation. And I mean, the recommendation is the committee's report. And I mean, there it's saying has resolved to submit the top 4 scoring interviewees to the provincial minister. I mean, there's really nothing we can put in there that isn't going to qualify that says that we aren't recommending them. So, I mean, I think the majority opinion of the committee is this is what we put in the report, but then in the minutes we note it because it is an important issue. But we can't reflect everything in the report. The report's a very simple closing out report. So we'll put that in the minutes.
Okay, I know and understand that none is prepared to think through issues I am raising. For instance, one other issue I raised yesterday was to say, here we have a situation where we're provided with incomplete information, right? Be it a service or qualifications. Those things are not there. Now, for me, it's our oversight role to play our oversight role over the process, right? And over the department in the course of its executing. But again, it was dealt with in a particular fashion, right? But it's fine. that's how liberal Democrats operate. It's fine. But I stand by my view in respect to how the report should have been formulated and making this critical consideration. And by the way, you can look at at Parliament as an institution and its entities in respect to certain existence, non-existence of certain section of our society.
Look, as was said,
We missed an opportunity. We have missed an opportunity by blue ticking the issue I've raised.
what we received was reflected in what we had in our packs. The flip side is if we'd allow the department to exclude people, one could also be accused of limiting who is put forward. So I think being open is probably the better option. Let's reopen this to the public. Remember?
Thanks, Chick. Now, just a request, if I can just quickly see the scoring Excel thing again, please. Nothing to ask on it. I just want to see it again.
Thank you very much. Just to confirm then that we have drawn up a report and we will be forwarding that to the department with our recommendations on that. We will also be circulating the minutes and that then concludes the process for this appointment. Thank you very much. Meeting adjourned. So can I just ask for motions to adopt the report? Thank you, Member
Move that we adopt.
Kazipalanda. Second, thank you, Member Johnson. Thank you. We have thus adopted the report.